You know, sometimes life slows down just long enough for us to hear something we were always meant to hear. And maybe this right now is one of those moments. So if this is the last message I ever get to share with you, I want it to mean something. I want it to remind you of the strength you forget you have, the hope you keep pushing aside, and the light you don't always see in yourself because you're here, you're alive, and that means your story isn't finished, not even close. So listen, really listen. This message is for you, and it matters. There are moments in life when everything suddenly becomes quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from silence, but the quiet that comes from clarity. A quiet where the noise of the world, the expectations, the fears, the rush, the confusion, all of it steps aside for just a moment. And in that moment, something inside you speaks, something honest, something real, something that doesn't need approval or applause or validation. It just exists. And sometimes, if you're paying attention, it tells you exactly what you need to hear. If this truly were the last message I could share with you, I would want it to meet you in that quiet place. I would want it to land gently in the part of you that still feels, still hopes, still reaches for something better, even if you don't always admit it. I would want it to remind you that every day you've lived, every breath you've taken, every mistake you've made, and every step you've stumbled through has been building you into someone capable of more than you realize. And maybe you haven't heard that in a while. Maybe no one said it to you in the way you needed. Maybe the people around you assume you already know, but I'm here to tell you anyway. Because the truth is, you've survived things you didn't think you would. You've carried weights you never asked for. You've held yourself together on days when falling apart felt easier, and even if you don't give yourself credit for it, you're still here. That alone means something. It means you're stronger than you think, braver than you believe, and more capable than you've been told. You're not done yet, even if part of you is tired. And maybe part of you is tired because you've been fighting battles no one sees. You've been trying to understand yourself in a world that constantly tells you to be someone else. You've been trying to find peace in a life that doesn't always make room for it. But the fact that you're still trying says everything. There's something profoundly human about wanting to give up and yet waking up anyway, about feeling like you're standing on the edge, but taking another step forward into the unknown. That willingness, that persistence, that quiet resilience, it's not small, it's not insignificant, it's who you are. And maybe you've forgotten that. Maybe you've been so focused on everything you haven't achieved, everything you still lack, everything you think you should have figured out by now that you haven't stopped to consider how far you've come. It's easier to see the distance ahead than the ground beneath your feet. But the ground beneath you is made of everything you've overcome. Life doesn't usually give us neat explanations. It doesn't wait for us to be ready. It doesn't pause when we're overwhelmed. It just keeps moving, and we do our best to move with it. Sometimes we stumble, sometimes we stand still, sometimes we sprint without knowing why, and sometimes we walk slowly because that's all we can manage. There's no shame in any of it. Life isn't a race. It's not about getting somewhere first or impressing anyone. It's about moments, small ones, fragile ones, unexpected ones, that shape us into who we are becoming. You might not realize it, but the small decisions you make every day, choosing kindness over anger, choosing patience over frustration, choosing courage over fear, those decisions sculpt your future more than any grand gesture or dramatic change. The world often celebrates loud victories and overlooks quiet endurance, but quiet endurance is where real strength is born. If this is the last message for you, I want you to really hear this. You matter. Not because of what you've accomplished, not because of how productive you are, not because of your success or your performance or your reputation. You matter because you exist, because you are a living, breathing human being with thoughts and dreams and fears and memories and hopes. And the world is different because you're in it, even if you don't always feel it, even if you don't always see it. There are people whose lives you've touched in ways you'll never fully understand. There are moments you've created that still echo in someone else's heart. You have value that doesn't disappear just because you forget it's there. Life is unpredictable, it's fragile, it's messy, it's beautiful, it's complicated, and it demands that we grow in ways we didn't expect. But growth isn't supposed to feel comfortable. Change rarely feels gentle. Becoming who you are meant to be requires letting go of who you were, and that kind of transformation often feels like loss before it feels like gain. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncertain. It's okay to not have everything figured out. No one does. Everyone is improvising. Everyone is learning as they go. Everyone is carrying invisible stories, invisible battles, invisible regrets. And yet, in all of that, there's something incredibly hopeful. You still have time. As long as you're breathing, as long as your heart is beating, you have the ability to choose. You can choose to forgive yourself for the mistakes you made when you didn't know any better. You can choose to let go of the things that no longer belong to the person you're becoming. You can choose to show up for yourself in ways you never have before. It won't be perfect. It won't always be easy, but it will be real. There's a kind of strength in admitting you're scared and doing the thing anyway. There's a kind of courage in acknowledging your imperfections without letting them define you. There's a kind of wisdom in seeing that life doesn't need to be extraordinary to be meaningful. Ordinary moments, quiet mornings, small conversations, simple joys, those are the threads that hold everything together. And you deserve to experience those moments fully without rushing through them or apologizing for them. Maybe you've been waiting for permission to start again, to try again, to hope again. If so, consider this your permission. You don't need anyone else to approve of the life you want to live. You don't need to meet anyone's expectations but your own. And your own expectations don't have to be heavy. They can be gentle. They can be forgiving. They can be human. One day you'll look back on this version of yourself, the one who feels unsure, who feels tired, who feels a little lost, and you'll realize how strong they were. You'll see how they kept going even when the road looked impossible. You'll see how they held on to hope even when everything felt dark. And you'll be grateful for them because they carried you to a future they weren't certain they'd ever reach. You're not alone. You never have been, even in the moments when it felt like you were standing in the world by yourself. There are people who care for you. There are people who want you to succeed. There are people who see your worth even when you don't. And even if you can't feel that right now, it doesn't make it any less true. You deserve peace. You deserve rest. You deserve joy. You deserve love, the kind that feels steady, the kind that feels safe, the kind that doesn't require you to earn it. And you deserve to give those things to yourself too, because the relationship you have with yourself is the foundation for everything else in your life. Treat yourself with the same compassion you'd offer someone you care about. You're not as hard to love as you think you are. And if this truly is the last message for you, then let it be a reminder that your story is still unfolding, that your presence matters, and that the world is better with you in it. Let it be a reminder that even in the moments when everything feels overwhelming, there is still something in you that refuses to give up. And that part of you, that quiet, persistent part, it's worth listening to. There's something powerful about realizing that life doesn't owe us clarity, and yet we still search for it. We look for signs, for meaning, for assurance that the path we're walking is leading somewhere worth reaching. And maybe you've spent a lot of time wondering if you're on the right road, if the decisions you've made will eventually make sense, if the struggles you carry will ever turn into something useful. But the truth is, the meaning usually comes later. It shows up in moments you don't expect, quietly, almost shyly, revealing that everything you endured was building you in ways you didn't see at the time. It's strange how life trains you without telling you what you're being trained for. You've probably had chapters you're not proud of, moments you wish you could erase, words you wish you could take back, choices you wish you had made differently. But those moments were part of the shaping too, not because they were perfect, not because they were right, but because they taught you something about your own humanity. They showed you your limits, tested your principles, and exposed the parts of you that needed healing. Regret isn't a punishment, it's a sign that you've grown, that you've become someone who can see the value of what you didn't understand back then. And that's something to take with you instead of something to run from. There's also the weight of expectations, the ones people put on you and the ones you put on yourself. The pressure to be strong when you're tired, to act like everything is fine when it isn't, to keep moving when you desperately want to rest. It's exhausting to pretend you're invincible. No one is. You're allowed to be human. You're allowed to feel overwhelmed. You're allowed to slow down. You're allowed to admit that you don't have all the answers. The world doesn't become better because you push yourself past breaking. It becomes better when you allow yourself to be real. And in that realness, find a strength that doesn't come from force, but from authenticity. Sometimes you confuse numbness with strength. You think that shutting down your emotions, pushing everything deep inside, pretending nothing bothers you will make you tougher. But real strength isn't about feeling less. It's about being able to feel fully without being destroyed by it. It's about having the courage to face what hurts, to acknowledge what scares you, to sit with the parts of yourself that aren't polished or perfect. That kind of strength is quiet, honest, and rare, and it's already inside you, even if you don't always notice it. There are days when you question your purpose, when you wonder if you're just moving through life without making any real difference. But purpose doesn't always announce itself boldly. Sometimes it's hidden in the small kindnesses you offer, the quiet support you give, the moments when you show up for someone without expecting anything in return. You might not realize it, but these small acts create ripples. They shift someone's day, someone's mood, someone's perception of the world, and that matters more than you think. If someone asked you what you want most out of life, maybe you did hesitate, not because you don't know, but because you're not sure if you're allowed to want it. Maybe you want peace, maybe you want love, maybe you want stability or adventure or forgiveness or a second chance. Maybe you want to finally feel like you belong somewhere. Whatever it is, you are allowed to want it. Your dreams don't have to be justified. Your hopes don't have to be compared. What you desire is part of your story, part of your calling, part of your truth, and it deserves space. You've probably spent too much time trying to be what others expected, molding yourself to roles that didn't fit, bending your spirit to match realities that weren't yours. But there's a moment, always, when you realize that living for others means abandoning yourself, and the cost of abandoning yourself is too high. You lose your spark, your wonder, your authenticity. You lose the part of you that makes you unique. Reclaiming that part is one of the greatest journeys you'll ever take. Not because it's easy, but because it's real. There's a gentleness you've forgotten to give yourself, a grace you offer others but rarely keep for your own heart. You apologize for things that weren't your fault. You blame yourself for things you couldn't control. You carry guilt that doesn't belong to, but life becomes lighter when you learn to release the burdens that were never yours to hold. When you forgive yourself for being imperfect, when you recognize that you were doing the best you could with what you knew at the time, and even if it wasn't perfect, it was honest. And honesty has its own kind of beauty. You've been through seasons that emptied you, moments that shook you, losses that altered you, but you're still here. And that means there's something in you that refuses to break, something resilient, something steady, something determined. Even on the days when you felt weak, something inside you kept you standing, and that something deserves your respect. You are not fragile just because you hurt. You are not broken just because you feel lost. You are becoming, reshaping, rebuilding, learning. It's easy to think of yourself as behind when you compare your journey to someone else's. But comparison is one of the quickest ways to lose sight of your own path. You're not meant to move at anyone else's pace. Your story isn't supposed to look like theirs. You're growing in ways that aren't always visible. You're healing in places no one else can see. You're transforming quietly, steadily, patiently, and that transformation is real even if others don't notice it yet. There's something sacred about the way you keep showing up, even when you're exhausted, even when you're uncertain, even when you feel like you have nothing left to give. The fact that you continue says more about your spirit than anything else. You're not giving up, you're not quitting, you're not done. There's still more life ahead of you, more experiences, more connections, more lessons, more joys that haven't found you yet, and you deserve to meet them. If this message reaches you at a time when life feels heavy, then let it be a quiet reminder that you don't have to carry everything alone. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to pretend you're okay when you're not. There is space for you to breathe, to rest, to feel, to be human. There is space for you to grow at your own pace, to heal at your own rhythm, to rediscover parts of yourself you thought were lost. And there is space for you to hope again, even if hope feels distant right now. You're allowed to dream of something better. You're allowed to start over. You're allowed to build a life that makes sense to your heart, even if others don't understand it. You're allowed to walk away from what harms you and walk toward what heals you. You're allowed to want more, not out of greed, but out of self-respect. Your life is not a punishment. Your future is not defined by your past. You're allowed to become someone new. And maybe the most important thing you can remember is this: you're still writing your story, and there are chapters ahead that will make you grateful you kept moving, even when it was hard, even when it was unclear, even when it felt impossible. There are times when you stand in front of a mirror and don't fully recognize the person looking back at you, not because you've changed too much, but because you've forgotten to pay attention to yourself. You've been too busy surviving, too busy helping others, too busy trying to meet demands that were never yours to carry. You've given so much energy to being who the world needs that you neglected who you truly are. And it's strange how easy it is to slip away from yourself without even noticing. But the good news is, you can always come back. You can always return to the parts of you that feel honest, that feel peaceful, that feel like home. Maybe you've been moving so fast that you forgot how to breathe deeply. Maybe you've been putting out fires in every direction, trying to hold everything together by sheer will. Maybe the pressure has been building quietly, like a weight pressing down on your chest, and you haven't given yourself the space to release it. But breathing isn't just survival, it's grounding. It's the reminder that you're here, that you're real, that your existence matters. Slowing down doesn't mean you're falling behind. Sometimes slowing down is the only way to truly move forward. You might think your value comes from what you do, from how much you accomplish, from how well you perform, but your value isn't conditional. It doesn't depend on productivity. It doesn't disappear when you fail. It doesn't shrink when you rest. You are worthy simply because you exist. And once you start to understand that, the heaviness you've been carrying begins to loosen. You begin to look at yourself with gentler eyes, with compassion instead of judgment, with curiosity instead of criticism. And that shift can change everything. People often tell you to be strong, but they rarely tell you what strength actually looks like. Strength isn't pretending you're fine. It isn't burying your feelings. It isn't forcing yourself through pain without ever stopping to heal. Strength is being honest about what you feel. Strength is asking for help when you need it. Strength is having the courage to sit with your emotions instead of running from them. Strength is understanding that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the doorway to real connection, real growth, real change. Maybe you've been carrying loneliness that you don't